Divorced Men of Redit. What moment with your former wife made me think yup, I'm asking this girl to divorce me? Not me, but one of my best friends got his permission to post. He got a pretty substantial year-end bonus from work. He decided to use most of it for his wife's Christmas gift and pay off her remaining student loans, $14,700, and the remaining portion to buy a new computer chair for when he gamed, $300. Christmas morning, he was nice enough to let me stay at his place when I traveled for work as he lived 20 minutes from the airport. We all woke up and had breakfast. His family and her parents came over and we started exchanging gifts. Besides paying off her loans, he had gotten her a few times items. She opened a card saying her loans were paid off. She just sat there for a minute. After the silence, and assuming she was kinda in shock, she asked, "Did you seriously not get me anything else? I bought you that stupid keyboard, the wrong one BTW, and you only got me a few things." At that point, his brother-in-law and myself decided to go hang out in another room for a while. They ended up getting into a huge fight. A day later, when he was dropping me off at the airport, he told me that he was going to visit a lawyer and get a divorce. She let me know she was pregnant and wanted my permission to tell all her girlfriends during a girls' night out. Since I knew there was no possible way it was my child, she was also unknowingly admitting to having an affair. I can math, and she can't. It was with her boss. Lawyered up the next day, and he ate her alive in court. I got primary custody of our child we already had, and child support, and a sheriff's notice that she had to vacate my home in 30 days. I never knew she could be that stupid. Did you guys just not have sex ever or what? We were at a point in our relationship where we were fighting all the time, so I just slept in the guest bedroom, so I wouldn't have to hear her screeches. But for some reason, on Father's Day, that's how I remembered the exact date, she came upstairs and basically forced herself on me. When she told me we were pregnant, I wanna tell all my friends, oh joy, I asked her when the doctor expected her due date. Then I did the math. 1/2 months does not a baby make. Finally got a prenatal paternity test out of her. I think she still believed she ninja'd my baby inside of her. The truth came out, and I finally just told her, just tell me the truth. We can work through anything. Then she fessed up. I was I gonna work through anything? I'd already had divorce proceedings in the works. During the last year and a half of our marriage, she became extremely psychologically abusive. She was a narcissist, controlled my every move, would isolate me, refused physical contact. I was just an extension to her life, was not allowed to talk to any female, was not allowed to hang out with any friends, or she would ignore me for up to 5 days at a time. Double standards everywhere, verbal abuse, and the list can continue, but it hurts to think about. The last straw for me was when she threatened to kill me because I came home from work late even though she knew I would be home late. It was just a little too late for her, and she also threatened to hit me the same day. This was the second time this happened, and I talked with several people at work about it and they suggested that I run. I had texts of the threats on my phone and contacted a lawyer that same week. She agreed to sign since I told her I would take severe legal action if she didn't. Thankfully no children, and it was a clean divorce, and I'm happily divorced. When my stepdaughter became a teenager, my ex ramped up the nutso. She had always been an impatient, angry screamer of a parent. But as my stepdaughter became a young woman, my ex just went crazy with envy or something. I know lots of moms have a hard time with teenage daughters, but their base level patience is so much better than my ex's was. Threats of cutting hair in middle of night while daughter slept, pulling hair, slapping face, ridiculing in front of her friends, swinging something that missed and put a hole in the wall. I was out with the kids. We flew across the country for her sister's wedding. She didn't say a word to me the entire time since we had parked at the airport. Once we landed at our destination, we walked to baggage claim, absolute silence preceding for several hours now. At the carousel, I picked up her bag when she took it out of my hand and calmly stated, "None of my family knows you're here." I told them I came alone. She walked out of the airport and left me there. Narcissistic personality disorder made for some really fun scenarios. When she falsely told our marriage counselor that I punched her. The next week, she denied saying it and accused our counselor of lying. He gave me a "you should leave this relationship" look. I took that look as permission from a professional that I definitely wasn't making the wrong decision. Got divorced and never looked back. I legitimately feared for my safety towards the end, not that she would hurt me, but that she would make a false accusation to the cops or a crazy friend. Edit, shortened the story. When a friend's wife said to me, "You know your wife is sleeping with my husband." That's a pickup line if I ever knew one. My wife was around less and had to be free to live her life, go out with her friends. More often than not she would call me to pick our daughter up from daycare, after promising to pick her up and have some girl time, just tell her I'm working late or not feeling well. She always had something better to do and the kids were old enough to know better. I went to pick our daughter up one day. When they called her name she came running over until she saw it wasn't mom. Again, slumped her shoulders and slowly walked over to ask what's her excuse this time. That was the breaking point. Told her to get out, even helped pay her security deposit to get her out. I was working on a mother-daughter scrapbook as a Christmas present for her. Was going through her Google Photos account looking for pics of them together. Came across a selfie she took with some dude laying on her. Confirmed her second affair. Knew it was over the moment I saw it. That has ducked me up pretty good. Not a wife but a fiance. Just called it off because we were house hunting and she kept wanting to look at houses that would accommodate an extra permanent guest. Her estranged father, whom she was wanting to reinitiate ties with, but wouldn't admit to it. Found out from a buddy that she was wanting me to lay out the money for the down payment and then was going to break it off herself and fight like hell to keep the house to herself. 2 years down the drain, but a lifetime of a fortunate near miss. When I found evidence of the last affair, as soon as I heard it, I knew that was the end, and there would never be anything else there. Was it like a sudden yup, I want a divorce, or did you take your time? Yup, time to start finding a place to go. I found out on a Sunday. First thing Monday I was scouring the internet for a place to rent. I kept her in the dark for the next month, until everything was set. When she got home from work, I handed her my ring, and told her I wanted a divorce, and I left. When we went on a family vacation and I hoped she'd sleep the entire time so I could have fun with our son. My sister said something similar about her ex. He had to go out of town for a business trip and she found that being a single parent was less work than having him be around. Then he ducked one of her friends, and her first thought was finally an excuse to kick him out. She started working at a job with people that were closer to her age, 25-30, instead of a job where her co-workers were in their late 40s early 50s. She wanted to go out and hang out with them rather than come home and be with her family, myself and our at the time 2-year-old daughter and a godforsaken cat that she just had to have. There were a lot of other little things that added up over time, mainly her desire to drink and drive, without our daughter in the car thankfully, and 4 days a week of not coming home until 2 or 3 in the morning and not telling a soul where she was or what she was doing. After a month of that, she said she wanted a divorce. I fought it with everything I had for 3 months. Decided to go to counseling, where the counselor asked her ex-wife, "In your mind, in this marriage already over?" After a literal 5-minute silence, I had the answer I needed. Separated a week later and divorced a year later. We're still civil for our daughter's sake. But I will say that after the initial shock of actually going through a divorce after us both proclaiming to do whatever it takes and never getting a divorce, I will say I'm much happier now. I was able to save up and buy a house for my daughter and I, which I never would have been able to do had I stayed married. 15 years in, and I find texts on her phone. Completely blindsided. No clue she had it in her to cheat. Told me it was just texting. Begged for forgiveness. I caved. A month later, checked the phone bill to find that it never stopped. Confronted her again. Cue more begging and more denial on my part that she would let the life we had built go down in flames. This went on for a few months. So many promises. One night, I caught her on the phone when she thought I had left. Suddenly it's not just texts. Sometimes it was phone calls too. Just a friend she could talk to that she let things go too far with. Promised to break all contact. Swore it was never physical. Then I found emails. She detailed things that made me sick to read. But also included descriptions of his house. She broke finally, but swore it was all just in the line of duty. That's how she met, you see? Visiting nurse service, and this guy was a client. Promised she was done. Loved me, you see? No chance she was going to let 15 years go like that. I wasn't buying it anymore though. She announced she was going out one night with a work friend. Promised they were only going to the bar, then she'd be home. Maybe late, but not too late. She had taken over her own phone account by then, but wasn't bright enough to understand that Google Latitude was still showing me where she was, and I wasn't about to show my hand. She kissed me goodbye and beelined right for his house, and was there until the wee hours of the morning. Once I knew where she had headed, I called her dad and my best friend to keep me from doing anything dumb. I will love them both forever for keeping me calm while my world went ducking insane all around me. My father-in-law offered to stay with the kids and wait for her to get home. Around 3 AM, while couch surfing my buddy's place, she sent me a nasty text asking where the duck I thought I was. I texted her a screenshot of her little GPS dot at her boyfriend's and let her know I'd be sending her some paperwork soon. My son was watching Netflix on her phone with me and her boyfriend text her. It was 12 at night and he said he missed her and couldn't wait to see her again. Typical, I know. I confronted her and she denied and said that her friend's daughter was texting my son. My son is 3, the daughter in question was 2 and barely speaking. Yay. That was time to go. When we had a much needed family trip planned to Mexico and due to a fight the week before, she told me she didn't want me to come on the trip, and took my 2 daughters and her mother for a week. She was a stay-at-home mom so I paid for the whole trip months before. As soon as I knew the plane left on time, I marched into a lawyer's office. I served her the papers the day after they got back home. I endured a physically, emotionally, and mentally abusive relationship for over 6 years with my first wife, 4 of which we were married. There were many instances that should have caused our marriage's demise. The proverbial straw that broke the camel's back, though, was 8 days after I had major oral surgery. Due to a freak medical occurrence, I had to have 28 teeth cut out and 2 holes drilled into my sinus cavities from top of the back of my gums. She and I were in a grocery store parking lot, and I asked her not to start an argument in the store because it's a small town and I was so tired of being those people. Her reaction was to backhand me in the mouth. 6 times. Or at least I counted 6 times because I'm pretty damn sure I lost consciousness. I just remember waking up when we were pulling into our driveway while she's freaking out because my face is against the window and blood is coming from my mouth like a fountain. When, after being in Afghanistan for 8 months, May 2002 November 2002, she was missing, had my car, finding 2 random women with kids and pets living in the apartment I paid for, the electricity cut off, no money in my bank account, a pay advance authorized by my commander, and a friend telling me to go easy on her because she was 5 months pregnant with his kid. Oh. And he had had heart surgery to remove some kind of cysts from his heart just before I left. He was 23, had a pacemaker, and basically half a heart. If I scared him, he could die. I'd say that was the moment. She got drunk on Christmas Eve and told me that she had been using crystal meth again and that she would always be an addict, because it was her first love and it was there for her when she was a teenager and her mother died. She finally said she loved it more than she loved being a wife or a mother and that plenty of people lead normal lives while still being users. It crushed me. She was so hungover the next morning that she missed Christmas at my parents' house with our 3-year-old son. I tried to speak to her about it for the next few weeks and she refused to acknowledge the conversation. And things finally came to a head when she started inviting a couple of known heroin dealers into our home regularly and threatened to move out when I asked that she not bring them around our house or our son anymore. I told her we needed to talk, me, her, and my parents who were trying to help. She flipped out and disappeared for days, and when she tried to come home, I had her sheet packed up. She said she knew it would never last when I started looking at houses out in the sticks, 20 minutes from a major city, when she could only live in the middle of a city. She actually cited the distance to Starbucks as a determining factor as to where we should live. I knew it wasn't fair to either of us when I realized that the only time I thought about her in a positive way was when we were drinking or ducking. Ex-wife and I were already on a trial separation, but honestly had hoped we would get it worked out. My daughter and I moved into my parents' house while we figured things out, and Christmas Day rolls around and she shows up to give her presents to everyone and leaves. Just really hit me that she couldn't even stick around on Christmas Day because she had more important things to do, that this wasn't going to work. Honestly, the only time as a grown man that I've ever cried. Sometimes when my ex and I used to fight, she would decide that she wasn't going to go to some function or honor plans we had previously made. Sometimes very last minute, like hanging out with friends, dinner with my family, etc. For example, we got into some argument and she decided to not go to my only sister's wedding. BTW, the wedding was that day. A year later, she did the same thing during a fight. She threatened me again, telling me that she decided to not go with me to Texas for a reunion with some of the guys I served in the Marines with. I didn't fight it this time and just said okay. Several days later she tried to renege on her threat and actually tried to turn it around on me, saying how mean I was for not wanting her to come with me. I told her that I was actually relieved that she wasn't going. I could hang out with my friends that I hadn't seen since I got out, and it would be nice to not have to worry about her crazy, insecure drama. That realization, that I was going to be happier without her, was the moment I knew we were done. When the cops showed up and arrested me while I was washing dishes. Found out after being taken to the station that she had claimed that I had been beating on her and my 5-year-old son. Was acquitted in court a month or so later. The situation was so messed up that the cops actually testified on my behalf. I could say it was the day I found the sexting with a doctor from her hospital, but no, I knew even before that. I am a widower and visited the cemetery twice a year to visit my first wife's grave. First wife's brother asked me to send him a picture of the headstone as he wanted to post something on social media on the anniversary of her death to say something in her memory. I happily obliged and sent him the pic. My second wife gets home later that night and is pissed at me because she had to find out on social media that some other woman had her last name. I was dumbfounded as she knew I was married before, knew that she had my last name, never mind that other woman had the name first, and yet somehow found a way to make yet another thing about her. Everything was always about her and apparently nothing was off limits to her narcissism. That was the moment I realized this is not someone I could be with every day. Me and my ex were always having ups and downs. Cutting up my clothes when I was out with friends, cutting my hair when I was asleep, random violence and screaming fits. The usual. We did the normal things couples were supposed to do, and it seemed to prolong the episode for a time. We bought a house, for example. Well, after we had the house, the next thing we needed was a cat. She loved it very much when it was a kitten, but as it grew up it became more independent. It's a cat dog, and she couldn't take this and became aggressive towards it. I remember walking in one day and she picked up the cat and threw it up in the air. It bounced off of the ceiling and then I threw her as out of the house, bouncing her sheet of the curb. I still have the cat. When she cried poor to me over the $100 she needed to cover going to Nick so she could see friends she hadn't seen in months. She went from not going because it wasn't worth the money to walking gleefully out the door when I handed her the $100. As I was laying in bed I wondered why she had no money. I checked her favorite clothing store history. She was averaging spending 75% of her income on clothes and makeup. Everything fell into place for me that day. I filed after the money scavenger hunt turned up she had a boyfriend too. This is going to sound really stupid, because it is. but you have to remember I was not happy. I was trying to make her happy. She was really into running half marathons and claimed that I did not support her, even though I did everything to support her, including started running to participate in her hobby to show support. In the end, doing it was not enough. I had to want to do it. Anyway, end rant. The story: I drove her down to her race because she had to have me there for all her races. Got up at 4 AM, drove her to the race. Walked her to the queue. This is the point in which she should turn to me and say, "Bye baby, I'll see you in 2 hours, kiss, I love you." But instead, she puts her headphones on, does not say a word, does not turn around to wave or smile. It was like I was not there. I actually said out loud, "Oh wow, we are going to get a divorce." She fought with me because she wanted me at every race. But it was not about me being there to support her running. It was about me being a chauffeur. Or maybe it was about control. I do not know really. Man, I need a hug. Edit. Wow. Thanks for the hugs, Reddit. Amazing to wake up to see that. It did actually make me feel better. So, I am partly to blame. I am not without fault in this. While was deployed to Afghanistan, she had an affair. This is far too common a story on its own. At the time, I was still very religious. I sought to repair the marriage and make things work. I told her I never wanted to talk about it again, and that she was forgiven yet on notice, so to speak. For the next 2 years we were both pretty shitty. She never believed me when I told her she was forgiven, and she truly was. She was scared I would cheat on her to get revenge. This made her jealous and controlling. She didn't want me to have female friends, associate with other female soldiers in my unit. Typical crazy bitch stuff. This was a big factor in the divorce, but not the tipping point. I did learn from it. Thought, I'm not a player, but I won't ever be with a jealous gal again. Again, I was not without blame. I had a lot of anger and problems when I came back. I'd get off work and go buy some 40s. Sit in a parking lot and drink rather than go home and try to fix things with her. My anger often got the best of me. I'd never raise a hand against her, let alone my voice. But she would push me to a point where I knew I would. So I'd leave for a couple of days to cool off. Maybe this wasn't the best course of action, but it kept me sane. I eventually got bored and volunteered for a tour of duty in South Korea. My first week out of the country, she ducked another man. That was the point where I was done. I married far too young and could have been a better husband. But I take it as a learning experience. Something that did make me a better man, and a better husband for whatever girl comes into my life. She asked me to put some music on her iPhone one evening, then fell asleep while I was doing it. Few hours later, her phone was still sitting there and she gets a picture message of some dude. No conversation before or anything. So I backed out, trying to figure out WTF. Where I found the conversation she forgot to clear, where she thanked her cousin for watching our son while she went and spent the weekend nights with him while I was at work. When my kids from my previous marriage told me on the phone they were not coming to visit anymore because of her, I always felt that I could manage the conflict between her and my kids. I was wrong. The oldest was around 16 and finally stood up to the situation. I told her we were getting divorced as soon as I got off the phone. I had threatened her with divorce a few times prior, but she always told me she'd try harder. This time, she knew I was 100% serious. She moved out within a week. That was a few years ago. My kids and I have a great relationship now. I'm still single and loving every bit of it. My ex was one hell of a disaster. Yet I stood up by her and tried to work with the hand I had been dealt, so to speak, because she was my wife. I discovered she was cheating on me. I expelled her from my house. As the rage subsided, we started talking again. I convinced her to move back in and we agreed, as she had suggested when I first confronted her, to go to therapy together. She promised to never contact the guy again. 5 months later, as I am finally facing the fact that she lies to me constantly and about all kinds of things, besides the usual not putting up with her share of the effort, expecting me to foot the bill on everything, not sharing stuff she should be sharing with her husband, etc. I discover she's talking to the guy again. So, she keeps cheating and I don't trust her word one bit. I'm done here. Now, we had a kid together, and this was in late November. So I chose to extend my misery for 7 more weeks, so I wouldn't ruin my son's Christmas. I counted the days until the 15th of January, when I kicked her out for good. Those weeks weren't that difficult, actually, because she had made me miserable for years, and this period at least had a clear ending date. Divorced now, and still bitter about all the wasted years with that undeserving bitch. When she said that if I ever did anything that she didn't like she would just divorce me, because I was her first real relationship. We had been married for 6 years, and were both in our mid-30s. I loved her, but that was the moment I realized that she didn't know what marriage meant. When I was laid off a few months later, she asked for a divorce and I agreed. Now I have the best job of my life, have lost 50 pounds, and met a lovely lady. Meanwhile she has been dumped multiple times, is still single and has gained weight because she is miserable. I hope she finds some happiness soon though. Saturday before Easter of this year she came at me with her desire to go to Germany and see friends that would pay for her round trip there and back. We got into an argument about it. I voiced my suspicion that something more was going on. We didn't speak Sunday. Then Monday rolls around and she tells me she's done. So I get home early, look around on her laptop and find chats between her and her German girlfriend. I invade her privacy because she had cheated before. She had been planning on divorcing me since November last year. So I call her at work and tell her to pack her shit and get out. I feel so much better not having the trust issues with her, but this whole ordeal is wreaking havoc on my 3 children. I was traveling for work. We'd been having issues. Turns out I thought they were workable and she was already done. Led me along though. Had 2 kids, been together 9 years, married 7. It was agony for me, worst period of my life. The only thing that kept me fighting was my kids. Didn't want them to grow up in a split situation, was willing to suffer for them. I was out of town for work for a few days and our dog was gone when I got back. She had given it to the neighbor who then just gave it to some friend out of town. I spent a year looking for that dog. I still think about it and hope he lived the last half his life happy because he loved our family. The reason? She was just tired of taking care of him. He was a great dog. Really smart, well trained, great with the kids. How can someone just do that? That's when I knew she wasn't who I thought she was. Fast forward 11 years. She's been married, divorced, and remarried. Has adopted and dumped like 15 cats and dogs over the years. WTF, they aren't furniture. The 2 kids I have with her are remarkably well adjusted, I have them half the time. Our custody situation is pretty great. She's a decent mom, just horrible about commitments to husbands and pets. I've been remarried 5 years to the most incredible woman on the planet. Looking back I have no regrets, except for losing track of my dog. I'll never forgive myself or her for that. I worked, she played. She woke me up in the middle of the night to grab the extra blanket off the bed. I expected to find her disgruntled on the couch alone the next morning. I found her in the guest bed with another woman, both naked. No forewarnings or clue-ins. Just despondent betrayal. I woke her for answers and got a whole lot of mumbles. Decided to split for space. That weekend we both ended up at the same bar on the same dance floor. I thought she'd followed me there to make amends. She'd brought the same girl and completely ignored me when I called out to her. When I walked up to her she pretended I was a stranger. I told her I'm not going to play any games and didn't know what was going on. She said she didn't want to be married. I gave her the ring back and went to tell my friends goodbye that night. I didn't want to tell them why, I felt so embarrassed. She saw me talking to my friends and decided to make out in front of us with her new woman directly on the dance floor 8 feet away from where I stood while everyone stared. Looking back now I realize she probably was scared to come out. I can give her credit for that. But she was an awful person for the way she did it and for never having the courage to say to my face whatever she was feeling. I thought we were best friends. I thought we were going to be together forever. She asked me to marry her. Now I'm just grateful for not being with a liar and a coward. I've made a fresh start. Sold everything. Traded my entire wardrobe band style to feel like I'm in a new life. Sure, I've lost more money than I ever thought imaginable. And the dog. I just keep optimistic that I'll find someone who deserves my time. I don't focus on the past and I have faith in God and the future. Whoever I marry next will be grateful for a man like me and loyal. But until then I'm gonna enjoy the single life again and just play. I was deployed to Iraq in 2009. I know. I haven't even read the comments on here yet, but I'm sure there are about 100 of these stories. And my wife went to live with her mom in Texas while I was gone so we could save money. About 2 months in, things got strange and I see this guy all over her Facebook. I asked her about it and she said I was just jealous and it resulted in a fight. A little while after that she sends me an email that she has a crush on one of her friends. Big fight occurs over the phone. I told her we need to go to counseling, but she can't hang around that guy anymore. She said no, because that was her only group of friends and blah blah. I ducking conceded and dropped it. I knew I could do nothing while overseas. And the fighting was a severe distraction while I was over there. But I then had the bright idea to look at our cell phone bill. And what do you know? This same number is calling her at all hours of the night. Almost every night. I call it and it's some dude and I put the pieces of the puzzle together. I tuck that away in the back of my mind. I come home, and things are okay. But she's acting shady with her phone and getting strange texts from a girl's name. Saying babe and I love you. I remember about the cell phone call log and realize she's talking to this dude while I'm at work, still in the Marines. So after a few days of not looking forward to the convo, I confronted her. She initially lied but eventually came clean. We separated right before Christmas and divorced that spring. One thing to note, I really chose to ignore reality to get through the deployment. Once I got home I just wanted someone to be there. That's why I didn't ask her more about the guy after a while.